daily New England Patriots podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Remember, Locked On Patriots is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. I am Mike Debate, your host of the Locked On Patriots podcast. I also cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Sports Illustrated. You can reach out to me on the Bird app at MDABATE NFL. While you're out there showing some of that weekly love to the Twitterverse, please be sure to follow the Locked On Patriots account as well at LO_Patriots. As you heard in the open, folks, it is time to preview the positions. And what better place to start than on a Wednesday, the day that the Lady of Locked On graces us with her presence. We're talking tight endage today. That's right, folks. And you can see the smile from ear to ear on my co-host today, the Empress of tight endage herself, phenomenal columnist for patspropaganda.com, podcast host extraordinaire in her own right with a Clare perspective, a Patriots podcast. Folks, my favorite Patriots listen in the Patriots Twitterverse universe. Whatever kind of verse you can think of, I'm listening to a Clare perspective. She is the Countess of Claz herself. The illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper joins me today. Thank you for joining me from across the pond, Countess. I can't talk today. It's unbelievable. Thank you very much, and thank you for saving me from my tongue twisting.
It's fine. It's Wednesday. I'm here. It's tight endage day. We live it. We live it.
Absolutely. We do love it. And the one thing that we love is that Claire will handle most of the talking today, since I cannot seem to get out a coherent sentence. People are out there going, what's the difference? Mike, you never can. Anyway, so what's the difference? No, I'm kidding aside, folks. It's a labor of love here on Locked On Patriots. I love doing the show. One thing that I love about it is getting a chance to share the microphone with great friends like yourself, Thomas Murphy, Steve Balistrieri. But Wednesdays are for the Lady of Locked On. And this is one that I know Claire's been waiting for a while. We've all been waiting for a while because, Claire, we've talked about the NFL draft and the New England Patriots and what they've brought in, maybe the reaches they've made or the positions that are going to be well stocked. I think we've made our feelings on the draft quite vocal here in the past few weeks leading up to the draft and also in the aftermath. But now we're starting to take a look at what the Patriots roster may look like. I know there's still that silent wave of free agency that is yet to come where teams are going to start making cut downs. June 1st is coming up. It's a popular date where a lot of people will either make pre or post June 1st cuts based on salary requirements and whatnot. So some marquee, there may be a few marquee, but some high name, free agents may find themselves on the market, and the Patriots may dip their toe in there. Little cap strapped at the moment, but as our good friend Miguel Benzon says, Patriots are definitely capable of clearing some cap space. But that being said, one of the areas on the roster, Claire, where the Patriots seem to be well set is the tight end position. They did not address it in the NFL draft. They didn't go after an undrafted rookie free agent, which I was a little surprised. I thought maybe they may stay away from it in the draft, even though we predicted that it might be a good idea for them to go after a tight end in the draft. But I thought undrafted free agency would bring one here, and they haven't done that. That leads me to believe that they're pretty happy with the four that they have right now on roster, meaning Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Devin Asiasi, Dalton, Keene. We're going to get into all of them and their preview and their potential for 2022, but 2021 was definitely a rebirth of the tight end position in New England. There's no question about it. After it being non-existent really I know that's a tough subject for you, but it really wasn't prominent, let's put it that way, as a part of the Patriots offense since the retirement and subsequent leaving of Rob Gronkowski. Mm-hmm. Henry and Smith coming in last year kind of rejuvenated it a little bit. Hunter had a monster year. Jonnu kind of laid in the wings, and I think he'll be okay this year. But when you look at 2021, what are your lasting memories and what stood out to you from the tight end position for the Patriots last season?
Well, the most significant thing of 2021, really, for me, in all fairness, I know this is a tight-ended show, but it has to be Mac Jones. But I think the
That's a good point.
lack of usage of Asiasi and maybe even Smith is kind of more the standout situation that comes to mind when you talk about tight-ended. I mean, I enjoyed being right, kind of, sort of, in a way, in regards to Hunter being, the key tight-ended. So, he had my tight-ended senses tingling. So I kind of, sort of like being right. But I mean, my positive moments, really, they do sort of surround Mac Jones and Hunter Henry and that great relationship and that great bond that they built up. I love that Hunter was a Bill guy and they brought him over. And on a personal note, and I really apologize for this indulgence, but the fact that the beloved John Rook of the playbook said to me that when Hunter got a catch kind of last season, his first thought was of me. And on like Twitter, I was tagged with tweets about some of the tight-ended action, and stuff like that. I just found it really sort of amazing. I mean, I adore being known sort of for my tight end enthusiasm. I know that people who follow my work know that I kind of cover everything else. I do cover the whole team. I do the game recaps for Pat's Propaganda and stuff like that. So it's just that tight-ended is my first of, but I adore football as a whole. So, but that little warm glow that I get from people knowing that I'm a tight-end enthusiast and they think of me when tight ends get a catch, it's cool. So I just kind of want to take this opportunity quickly to say thank you to everybody, because I really enjoyed that. So that's kind of one of my pivotal moments for 2021 is that sort of bond that I've got on kind of with listeners and with other fans and stuff like that in regards to kind of tight-ended. That's really fun. So I love the relationship in regards to Hunter and Mac, and obviously how well Hunter played in 2021 is great. But the negatives for me in regards to what stands out is the lackluster from the rest of the tight end core in 2021. I know it's something that we're kind of we're gonna break down a little bit more specifically later, as I know that we're going to talk about Smith, and I know that we want to talk about Keene and Asiasi as well. But I felt it's so significant after the Patriots invested what they did, and as you aforementioned, they had some lean years at tight end. Even if I love Izzo, and he didn't get as many targets, as expected. He was playing under sort of Cam Newton, a quarterback that wasn't throwing. So I mean, even with all that aside, they still didn't really get sort of from the tight ends what we were used to seeing as Patriots fans. They were never going to, with Gronk leaving, and I know we've touched upon this many times before and stuff like that. So, but it has been a lean year. But then Keene was injured. Asiasi had a full season healthy scratch, and Smith struggled. So I know we mentioned before how Smith did play better than we really realised, but maybe he was utilised less in those spotlight kind of ways that we were expecting for him, more in blocking and stuff like that. So particularly due to sort of how an athletic guy we were sold on, on him. So there's a positive and negative when it comes to what stood out in 2021. Right. Definitely the Hunter Mac thing was key, and I think really the negative was just the rest of the tight end core. As I mentioned, it was just lackluster. We were expecting so much more because we were coming off those lean years, and because we had the two tight ends free agency signings. We'd got these two rookie guys that had been in the system for a year. There was way more expectation maybe than was necessary, but we were sort of sold on all this stuff to when you come down to it, 2021 really was just, when you talk tight ends, really you can only really talk Hunter Henry, because that was really what was the success of tight endage in 2021. Not trying to take away from Smith, as I said, and we'll talk about a little bit later, but when you look at it as a whole, as a year, it's the only real thing that stands out in a positive way is Hunter Henry. And unfortunately, there's quite a bit that stands out negatively in regards to the lack of usage of Asiasi, the lack of usage really, or the lack of performance from Smith, and unfortunately the injury to Dalton Keene.
Absolutely. I think you make such great points, and that 2021 was a resurgence for the tight end position, but in a lot of ways it was really because of Hunter Henry, but ultimately because of Mac Jones, because Mac was able to find that synergy with Hunter. We know from being reported several times throughout the year last year that these two guys are very close. They live near one another. They're they've developed a great relationship, and Mac and Hunter really kind of carrying that into 2022 is something that I know Patriots fans are going to be enamored with. They're really going to be excited about it, and I think it could lead to great things. And Hunter has been everything is advertised here in New England, especially when it comes to his route running. And I know a lot of people are, talking about him being a phenomenal route runner and maybe surprising some people. Definitely did not surprise me. From the moment I watched him in practice with the Chargers, I knew this kid was someone that could excel here in New England, because he is that route running tight end that is able to find the seam, able to get open. He can make catches in short yardage situations, but he can go long if you need him to. Very reminiscent of Rob Gronkowski. And I'm not comparing the two because Gronk is on a whole other level, folks. He is. As much as I love Hunter, Gronk is just, he's in that pantheon of tight ends that are going to be remembered in this league and remembered, throughout the history of this league for many years to come. But Hunter, I think, is well on his way to a very solid career. And I think the relationship that he has with Mac is going to help him do that. So 2021, definitely a good year for those two guys. The rest of the field, well, not so much. Injury has contributed to that. Maybe a few growing pains, maybe kind of getting acclimated to a new system. But the two tight ends that the Patriots took in the 2020 NFL draft were kind of seen as being also Rans because of the action that the Patriots took in 2021 free agency. Is that a little unfair? Well, Claire's going to break down those two tight ends in just a moment and give you her thoughts on each. But first, Claire, it's that time again here on Locked On Patriots where we talk about summer coming to all of us here pretty soon. And in New England, we're actually supposed to get some summer-like weather over the weekend. And with summer, you're going to need to get some food on the go. That's when you turn to our good friends over at Built Bar, because Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. You can throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, Claire, is they're healthy and delicious. I don't know how they do it, but they start with taste first, and then they make it good for you. I know, folks, magic, but they're somehow able to pull it off. You don't have to sacrifice delicious food for health any longer. With Built Bar, you can have them both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. They have all of your traditional favorite flavors, from peanut butter brownie to mint brownie to coconut almond. Also, be sure to try the new puffs. The Built Puffs are amazing. They make great s'mores, by the way, folks. Just a little personal note there. Try it. You'll thank me. And Built granola bars as well. Claire, I can tell you, I'm indulging in these as we speak. They are amazing. Chocolate coconut, chocolate peanut butter, white chocolate berry, folks, you name it, Built Bar has it all. All Built Bars and puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. So don't delay, do it today. Visit Built.com and enter the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your next order. That's LOCK15 is the promo code at Built.com. Patriots fans, in this competitive business environment, can you afford to have a portion of your workforce just sitting around doing nothing? No. As Michael Corleone would say, it's not good business. Why should your building be any different? Catalyst Power would like to lease that empty rooftop from you to build a large solar array. Generate a brand new revenue stream without lifting a finger or being responsible for the installation or the upkeep of that array. You can do something great for the environment, great for your marketing, and great for your bottom line, all at the same time. Catalyst Power will own, install, and operate the solar array at no cost to you. While your building won't receive the electricity generated by the array, it couldn't be generated without you. This is the simplest way to achieve an environmental, a social, and a governance goal, all while getting paid. Eligible rooftops in Massachusetts and Connecticut are over 50,000 square feet of usable space and are relatively new, or with a scheduled repair or replacement timeline. Earn up to $1 per square foot per year in lease payments. Go to catalystpower.com/LockedOnPatriots to learn more. Patriots fans, the illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper, the Countess of Claz herself, the lady of Locked On, joins us here as she does each and every Wednesday. And if you notice a little extra spring in her step or a bounce in her giggle, it's because we're talking tight endage here on Locked On Patriots. And we will continue to preview the positions each and every week here. Claire and I will continue to do so stay tuned for that. Also, for schedule release and all of the information on that, keep it right here to Locked On Patriots on Thursday and Friday. We'll have all of the schedule aftermath information for you. So be sure to stay locked into Locked On Patriots and continue to do so by downloading and subscribing on all platforms, including YouTube. Claire, in the previous segment, we talked about 2021. We talked about the resurgence of the tight end position and how tight endage is back in New England. But not all of the tight endage news in 2021 was good news. And while I think we're going to reserve judgment for the new guys that are entering their second season in just a moment, let's start with the pair of 2020 draft picks that originally was supposed to inject new life into the tight end position. At the end of the 2019 season, the Patriots were kind of languishing when it came to tight endage. Your good friend and business partner, Ryan Izzo, I think gave his... Listen to the laugh, folks. Listen to the laugh. If you're viewing on YouTube, you can see the enthusiasm. If you're listening, you can hear the genuine laugh. That's it. You know what? We should end on that note. Just that laugh was perfect.
Cut.
It was well-timed. It was great. No, I'm only kidding, folks. We still have a lot left to pick the brain of here of the Countess of Claz herself. But that was great, Claire. I couldn't have asked for better. I mean, even if I wanted to inject a laugh track, I couldn't have done it better myself. Dalton, Keene, Devin, Asiasi. Okay, I inverted their selection cadence there, but these two guys coming into the New England Patriots system in 2020 as a result of really, I think, just a lackluster 2019. And again, I do apologize to Ryan. I've always said that I join you in that regard. I'm a Ryan apologist, thinking that I think he did the best he could. But he was being asked to be Rob Gronkowski, and you can't ask someone to be Rob Gronkowski. You just can't do it. You're setting someone up to fail. Mm-hmm. So the Patriots spent valuable draft capital, bringing in Devin Asiasi, bringing in Dalton, Keene. The last 2 years have been very difficult. Obviously, Keene has had his injury problems. Asiasi, I think assimilation problems really sums it up very well. But I don't want to steal your thunder here. You see things in tight ends that us mere mortals don't see. And when it comes to, let's start with Asiasi first, because he was the first tight end selected in the 2020 draft. What are your thoughts on Devin? I know we've talked about him either having a breakout year or not being able to get into the swing of things. Is this simply an assimilation issue, or are the Patriots starting to realize that maybe this kid is not the fit they thought he was going to be?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you put it like that, because that's definitely sort of where I'm coming from. I mean, Asiasi and Keene, as you mentioned, significant potential, but, you know, they've come off really empty years. I mean, Keene, obviously, we know, as you said, suffered with the injury and the knee surgery, and that was super unfortunate. But it begs the question, kind of now, is he going to be football fit? And if he is, what does he have? We've seen him in 6 games for 3 receptions in that 2020 season. So in regards to that, we haven't really got a lot to go on. And then, as you mentioned, moving on to Asiasi, he's kind of a bit of a mystery, really. In all fairness, going into his first year, there was plenty of positive hype. The Patriots moved up to get him in the draft. His first year, he had 7 targets for 2 receptions. Now, granted, the tight end position is a difficult one, something that we've discussed many times before, and others have discussed. It's one of those positions that is more difficult in regards to transition. And Asiasi lost time because of personal tragedy, and I believe some injury time as well. So, okay, we can sort of say, well, you know, 2020 is a bit of a, you know, let's just kind of scratch it off the books. I know a lot of Patriots fans would kind of be happy with sort of, you know, putting a line under the 2020 season and not really including it in a lot of stuff, particularly because of the sort of unrest at quarterback. And then we had Cam Newton and nothing against him, no disrespect to him. We didn't have the performance that we were hoping for from him, unfortunately. He wasn't much for kind of throwing the ball, so you're not really going to get tight end receptions if you haven't got a guy who's going to chuck the ball out, in all fairness. But so it was a jumble of a year coming off a breakup with Tom Brady, that kind of thing. It was emotional, you know, but it's pieced together back time. So even if you sort of push 2020 away and you move on to just 2021 and say, okay, this is a full season for both of these guys. Okay, it was with a rookie quarterback and, some other great free agency signings. So, but Asiasi was a healthy scratch for 2021 and the whole of 2021. And I've heard arguments of, but they spent on Hunter and they spent on Smith. And that's not wrong, and in all fairness, but my argument is both of these guys had injury niggles. Both of those players had some injury issues, lost time or, lost some time or lost some practice time, but they had sort of underlying injury niggles that, that would give them time, or it wouldn't be of non-benefit to give them a bit of time. Now, Smith also struggled to acclimatise to the Patriots system, apparently, as we've been told. But instead of using the young, supposedly healthy kid who had already had some time in the system, granted, we were drawing a line under 2020, but he still had that time there. He was still in the building. He was still with the rest of the team. And he still had some on-field time, as we said, with his kind of 7 targets. He played 9 games in that system. But he was a healthy scratch, as I said, for pretty much every single game of 2021. Now, I'm a bit of a tight end enthusiast. We all know this. You have transpired to this. The T-shirt even says it. It's not a news flash, folks. But a whole of a healthy scratch really gives me some severe lacking in confidence in a player. Now, let me be clear. I'm not hating on Asiasi. I'm just feeling a little bit kind of burnt out now on trying to say the if and but, that kind of thing. I think the same way that a few fans are a little bit sort of with the N'Keal Harry issue, and even some fans are feeling the same way about Nelson Aguilar. You just haven't really seen the performance that you were expecting. And in all fairness, for Asiasi, we saw no performance. And the reason we saw no performance is because they didn't play him. And I mean, I kind of feel to be honest, I kind of feel fine now with sort of moving on from Asiasi. Keene's a slightly different kettle of fish because we don't really know, because he was injured. Like I said at the beginning, he may not even be football fit now. You don't even know. He sort of plays in the more, as we've mentioned before, the fullback, H-back sort of, situation. And if you've got a guy who's suffering with injury, it's an even more tough position in regards to the force, in regards to blocking, that sort of thing. So I really do think, and I don't enjoy saying this, I never enjoy sort of wanting to move along from a player, because I'm a Patriots fan and I'm a passionate Patriots fan. And I'm passionate about the players that are Patriots. Yeah, you could say, well, that's a little bit fickle because if he's not a Patriot, you're not into him. But I'm a Patriots fan, and that's where it holds true for me. So to kind of want to move on from someone who is a Patriots player, I don't like how that, how it feels, to be honest. But it's kind of gotten to the stage that it's like they didn't play him for a whole year. And that's the thing that's really sticking to me, is the whole year, the healthy scratch for a whole year. And then, as I mentioned before, the arguments in regards to the money that was spent on Hunter and Smith, you take that into consideration. And I appreciate that. But neither of those guys played 100% and played 100% perfect. So there was definitely the availability to move in a young guy occasionally, even to take the pressure off occasionally, because they're 2 guys moving into a new system that Asiasi had already been in. So it just doesn't ring true as to why you wouldn't utilise a guy who's kind of young, fresh legs, if you like, already knows the game plan, already knows the system. To me, it didn't quite make sense to use him 0%. I get the reasons to not use him a lot. Like you said, they spent a lot on the other 2 guys, and I understand all of that. But to use him not at all, to me, that just doesn't quite ring true as to, a good thing, in all fairness. So I think it might be time to move on from Asiasi, and unfortunately I don't think I'd be upset, even as a tight end enthusiast. It's a shame because you want everybody to work out. It's the whole part of being a fan, really. But they can't really see something in him, or maybe they did and they don't now. I think it's just sort of time, in all fairness. And I was really sad that the Patriots didn't address the tight end, even in the UDFAs, as Fitzy likes to say, and then undrafted free agents. And the Giants took both of the tight ends that I really liked, and then the third guy went to the Cowboys. So in conclusion, Claire's not very happy about all that. So I've got to admit, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't take anybody. Yeah, I was always looking for undrafted. I was realistic. I knew that the draft wasn't a place that they were going to look for a tight end, really, because they'd got such significant need elsewhere. And I was completely fine with that, even as the tight endage, enthusiast that I am.
Mm-hmm.
But to not even pick up an undrafted free agent, I think is surprising, because of the lack of utilization of Asiasi. If they'd have used Asiasi last year, then I'd been like, well, they don't need it. They don't even need a new rookie, because they're going to use those kind of semi-rookies, if you like, as I like to call them, because they're only in their first 2 years. They're going to see what they can get out of them. But because they didn't use Asiasi in 2021 at all, to see what they could get out of him when maybe it would have been worth it, I'm surprised that plus no undrafted free agents is the situation that we're at now. And I'm just really hoping that maybe that kind of gets rectified, if it can, in the sort of off season until we get there, in all fairness, because obviously not every team's going to keep their undrafted free agents type thing. There's the carousel of training camp, if you like, where people come in and out. And
Right.
I'm sort of hoping that that Asiasi can be utilised in some kind of trade, and we get some fresh kind of tight endage blood. As much as I love Hunter and Smith, and I do, and I know that we'll move on to that in a minute, I think it's kind of time for the revolving door of get some in, because we need to look at the future. You need to pack those young guys in, get them sort of with Matt Jones for a couple of years as you kind of go forward, and Hunter and Smith get older and their contracts kind of run out. So I think it's surprising that they didn't address it at all, and I think it's wrong. I'm making a note. I think it's wrong. They should have looked at the undrafted free agents or something in regards to tight endage. And I'll sort of leave it at that, really.
Well, if the Countess thinks it's wrong and she's displeased, Bill Belichick is right now going, what to do? He's no, all kidding aside, I think you make some great points. I'm glad that you made the parallel to Aguilar, and I'm going to go back to that one in a moment, because I like that. Because Aguilar spoke to the media yesterday he met the media for the first time this offseason, and I think gave some great insight as to what strides he's hoping to make in year 2. And I think that's a good parallel to make with Asiasi, who now has been in the Patriots system, or will have been at the beginning of training camp now for his beginning his third season. He's got 2 under his belt, whereas Aguilar only has 1. I wrote a piece on Nelson yesterday, and a lot of the feedback that I've been getting, either for Facebook groups or whatnot, is that, oh, well, he didn't do anything last year. Cut him loose. He's done. He's a bust. He didn't work out. I think you really need to be very patient in terms of some of these guys when you have only 1 year in the system. And we're going to talk about a guy like that in just a moment, in Jonnu Smith. But I think you make a good point in Asiasi, 2 years in, and he's not really making that rotation. There has to be something there that the Patriots aren't seeing. And look, I was very high on Devin when he came out of UCLA. I really liked the film that I watched on him. I scouted him as a potential Patriot and was pleasantly surprised to see that the Patriots actually did take him. I thought he might be a viable target for them, and they did draft him. It's great, very, very strong when it comes to being a natural hands catcher. This kid is not someone that fumbles around a whole lot. The ball falls into his hands very easily. He's able to cradle it. He knows how to make his receptions either close to the body or out, in front of him. He can really make the catch when he needs to. He's got pretty good body control, decent route runner. I think he can use a little bit of work in that area, but that I would consider a strength rather than a weakness for Devin. But the thing that I haven't seen him really do is blend his size, his speed, and his length all together and really put it together as the total package. But granted, he hasn't had a great sample size to do it, but the Patriots do watch these guys in training camp. They watch these guys in practice all the time. And Devin missed some time during training camp last year with COVID, and there was a lot of difficulty there. He never looked like the same player coming back in, maybe because he missed all that time. It hurt him a little, but at the same time, I look at him and saying this is a make or break training camp for him. If he does not wow this coaching staff, he may be on the outside looking in. And unfortunate as it may be, the Patriots have to look at the other areas of the roster and where do they want to have extra talent. They've got a lot of hybrids on this team now that don't necessarily fall into a position. Ty Montgomery is one that I was discussing and wrote about yesterday for Sports Illustrated, whereas he can come in and play either a slot position when it comes to the receiving core, or he can play a running back. They've got guys that they've drafted in here that could be in that mold as well. So a lot of different things to look at when it comes to Devin and keeping him on staff. Keene, I think, gets the second chance, and I don't think the Patriots hesitate here because I like the fact that he's got versatility to play in the slot. He can line up as the H-back. We've talked about that several times. I do think you're onto something, and I give you credit for that about his ability to play fullback. If the Patriots want to align in that, I think Dalton Keene is the guy that they're going to give those keys to. Meniscus injuries can be they can be complicated. They can come back and not really affect the player all that much, and they can come on and be as strong as they were before, or they can have lingering issues. I think that's the only thing that could derail Dalton Keene this year is lingering problems with injury, because he really has had some bad luck. But I think the upside is there, and I really want to see what this kid can do. Clare, you always provide great insight, folks, but don't worry. We haven't talked about the two top guys at the position yet, including Clare's favorite, Hunter Henry, and we're going to do that in just a moment. Jonnu and Hunter are facing a pretty big season. Will that two-handed tight end monster we've been hearing about finally come to fruition in 2022? We'll discuss that and more in just a moment when this Wednesday tight endage edition of Locked On Patriots continues. But first, Clare, in the previous segment, I talked about the weather up here in New England and how it's about to get warm over the weekend. And of course, you want to keep yourself in shape. You want to be in great shape. You want to enjoy the outdoor weather, and you want to enjoy it while you can. And part of that is your own physical appearance, but some of that also is the appearance of your ride. Because let's face it, if your ride's not running well, you're not going anywhere. You can do that and get your ride in tip-top shape by visiting my good friends at rockauto.com, because with Rock Auto, you can save time and money. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, Clare, believe it or not, even 100% more for some of these auto parts from chain stores or car dealerships? You don't want to do it. It's not good business. RockAuto.com, however, is a family business, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. You don't have to be an insider to get their deal. Their deals are for everyone. And they have everything that you could possibly need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. We encourage you to discover your own car parts needs by visiting rockauto.com today. Go and explore their easy-to-use website. Find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure to put Locked On in there "How did you hear about us" box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Patriots fans, we're about to wrap up our discussion on tight endage, but we have saved the best for last. We've also saved our best and most knowledgeable guest on the subject for our Wednesday show, as we do each and every Wednesday here. I am always honored, always grateful, always humbled to be joined by the illustrious Clare, ClazzyClare Cooper of Pat's Propaganda and A Clare Perspective, the Patriots podcast. She's in the house as she is each and every Wednesday. And Clare, we've talked about 2021, and we've talked about the tight end resurgence. We talked about Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi and their potential future in New England. But if there's one thing that I think everybody can agree on when it comes to tight endage, it's that the jobs of both Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are pretty secure for 2022. I think the Patriots are pretty well suited to the fact that Jonnu and Hunter are going to be members of this team. Patriots invested a lot of money there. There's a lot of potential, and there's also a lot of prowess. And we saw that mostly with Hunter last year on the field, but we saw flashes of Jonnu being able to be that type of guy that I think he's going to be in 2021. But again, you see things us mere mortals don't. You are, after all, the empress of tight endage, the queen of TE, the baroness of blockers. You are the principal of positivity when it comes to tight endage. You didn't think I was going to forget all those names, did you, folks? There's no way I can do that, if for no other reason, just to make her laugh. And bottom line, Clare, in all seriousness, you really do have a good eye for these things. And I know you were impressed with Hunter Henry last year, and I know you still have faith in Jonnu Smith in terms of what he can do. What did these two guys need to do on the field to make that next step and take tight endage to a higher level in 2022 for the New England Patriots?
Well, hopefully the potential is significant. A lot is going to depend upon the use of other receivers, such as how Aguilar, as you mentioned, drew coverage last year, because it meant that Hunter could be utilised, could be free, could be more available. So this year could be very different, particularly because of the speed that's been added. And not only with Tyquan Thornton, but like with Pierre Strong. I mean, the offensive lineup itself has quite a different look. And I mean offense as a whole, really, offensive line as well as receivers, that kind of thing, genuinely the whole of the offense. And I mentioned on One Patriots Place recently, yesterday, it's lighter, it's faster, which moves a little away from that kind of bully ball that we're used to sort of seeing, but hopefully not completely. Now, as we aforementioned, Hunter was the top target for receiving touchdowns in 2021, and he was one of the top tight ends in 2021 for receptions, and with 9 touchdowns as well. So he had 50 receptions for the Patriots. And I can, I got to say, I really like saying this. I love it when I get to like read his stats off quickly, because I like to be able to say, and 0 drops. That's right, folks. 0 drops. I love that. Anyway. Okay, that aside, he had a really good run in the middle of the season, but it kind of tapered off. And I think a lot of that was to do with really the league realizing what the Patriots were doing and how the Patriots were having issues offensively. And Hunter was kind of that go-to guy. He was the significant tight end. And so, he was taking more coverage. And as a result, he there was less production there, sort of thing. The question is, will he have more potential in 2022? And in all fairness, I'm not really sure that there will be a leap in his performance. I personally don't think that, there needs to be a leap in his performance, because he did perform so well for them in 2021. He was great. He's a top tight end, but Jonnu Smith is a bit of a different story, as we've alluded to, and it's not all on him. It's utilization, it's the system. Will they use him more in the backfield? That little FB symbol isn't on the roster anymore. But I'm not saying that Smith should be a complete fullback. Don't get me wrong. Before anyone sort of gets upset, I'm just pondering at the moment that the recent additions in speedy receivers and the sort of reduction that we've had in blockers in regards to, losing a fullback kind of thing is going to impact maybe how the Patriots utilize Smith even more so. 2021, he played 16 games for 28 receptions. Now, one receiving touchdown, he had 3 drops, and he had 9 carries. So he was already utilized a little bit differently than Hunter was anyway. Hopefully this year he's had kind of hopefully the year that he had even, the year that he had in regards to kind of the system, because he's had that year behind him, they can bring the best out of him. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to get at. So, yeah, maybe more.
It's going around. You caught it from me. That's enough.
Yeah. Oh, he's passed it on, folks. It's so unfair. But no, seriously. What we saw in Tennessee. So what we how they utilized him. Maybe his skill set is going to be different this year, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's something that we need to be aware of as Patriots fans. That he's still not going to. Maybe he's not going to be the top receiving tight end, but it isn't exactly going to matter. As I mentioned, maybe he'll be utilized a little bit fullbacky-ish, if you like. Maybe he's going to be utilized to carry the ball. I think the thing that's significant for Smith for this year is more utilization in the system, being able to sort of show that he, what he can do. However, because the Patriots have added so differently in regards to their offense, as I aforementioned, with speed, that kind of thing, I think we need to be prepared for the fact that he may be used very differently, and he's not necessarily going to be used in the way that they saw in Tennessee, as I said, and that he's not really going to be able to give the numbers that people kind of want him to be able to give that proves his performance. I think it's going to be a case of giving him a chance to see how he fits in. The Patriots are going to know how he fits in their system. So it's not going to be hating on him for having low numbers.
Right.
If the Patriots are winning with him in a position that maybe fans aren't sort of seeing him, well, he's an elite athlete, sort of why are you utilizing him as a blocker, that sort of thing. But if that creates the knock-on of success for the Patriots because it gives other players top performance in their position, really isn't that what's going to be the best for the team itself and whatever's the most successful? So as long as he's used in a way that creates the success within the team, I think that's what's going to be key, what's most important. Not just that he can have X amount of receptions, X amount of carries, X amount of touchdowns. I think we need to look at it as a complete picture. And the same with really that people would have looked at Aguilar, as you probably mentioned last year, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't give you those numbers that you wanted to see as a fan. You didn't see those high receptions, but he drew coverage for Hunter. So we saw good receptions from Hunter. And I think the offense this year, as I said, it's going to be different. We've got this speed that we didn't have before, that they didn't have before, that we didn't see before. So the utilization of Smith, I think, is still going to be very different to what fans were anticipating at the beginning of 2021, because he's such, a good athlete, that kind of thing. But I think that's not going to be a bad thing. That's what we need to sort of get over in a way, is don't worry so much as to sort of how exactly they're using him, how it shows you. And just as long as that's the successful way, I think that's what's going to be important. Maybe kind of less labels on it and just more the success as a whole. So I don't think personally that Smith is going to see that massive leap that some people might be expecting now he's been acclimated to the team for a year, that kind of thing. Because I think the way the dynamic is with the offense is going to be different this year with regard to the speed, the new receivers, the new running backs. I just think as long as he's successful within the team, that to me is what's going to be important with regards to him being, the full tight endage that he can be. So yeah, I think it's looking out for that this season more so than just looking at how many receptions he gets for the team, really.
Absolutely. And for the record, I think Claire has coined a new phrase, folks. She's already got tight endage in her arsenal. Fullbacky-ish, I think, is one that we're going to credit to her as well. I love that. I loved it. It was great. But no, don't let that distract you from the amazing points that she made. And one of them that I really want to come back to is about Jonnu being possibly used as a fullback. We're hearing that a lot. Beat writers, fans, members of the national media are talking about Jonnu Smith as someone that can align in that role. I think you're going to see some of it. I do think he can be. I think especially with the likely departure of N'Keal Harry, insert the applause here from a lot of our fan base listening. I know they love hearing N'Keal Harry coming out of town. But it's not a done deal yet, folks. It's likely, but it's not a done deal until it's a done deal. But getting back to that situation, they are going to need players like that can come in and can block. And Jonnu did a tremendous job of that last year. You're not going to have Michael Wainu lining up as a jumbo tight end and blocking, as you did the previous year, because I believe he's going to be your starting right guard in place of Shaq Mason. So you need guys that can play that role. And because Jonnu can do it so well, I think the Patriots may be looking to utilize him in that fashion from time to time. People that are looking to see this illumination of the stat sheet for Jonnu Smith this year may still be a little disappointed. I don't think you're going to see the monster numbers. And you made that point so well. And I'm so glad that you did, because I think that's something that's lost on Jonnu an awful lot. One thing that I will say, folks, is when this kid does get the opportunity to get the ball in the open field and get that yak, that one's for you, Murph, getting that yards after the catch, Smith still led all tight ends last year in yards gained after the catch per reception with 8.5. That coming from Pro Football Focus. So this kid can definitely get the yardage that you need after he makes the catch, and that's where Jonnu Smith is going to be so devastating. I love the points that you made on Hunter Henry. Not going to be a gigantic jump for him. I don't think he needs to make one. I think if there is a surefire, sure thing on this tight endage depth chart right now, it's Hunter Henry. And again, it does not surprise me. I'm not going to go into the history there, but I know a lot of fans are pleasantly surprised by what you've seen by Hunter Henry and why Bill Belichick has always been so high on this kid, because he can do it all. He's a hand in the dirt tight end, but he's also a tight end that can go out into the open field, run routes, and really give you some of the yardage that you get from receivers. I don't think he's going to have to do that as much this year, because there are receivers that the Patriots have brought in that now all of a sudden your defenses or your opposing defenses are going to have to account for these guys on the field at all times. They're going to want to know where Devontae Parker is on that field, because he has big play capability. They're going to want to know where Tyquan Thornton is on that field. Just because the kid is a rookie, do not let it distract you from the fact that this kid has blazing speed. Nelson Aguilar is an extremely fast wide receiver. He can get open. He is a deep threat. Nelson didn't bat an eyelash yesterday when one of my colleagues asked him about Tyquan Thornton and whether or not he was going to race him. I believe it was Mike Reese. I can't. I don't want to. But I think Mike was the one that asked him. And forgive me if it was someone else. I don't want to discredit anyone. But somebody asked him about, are you going to race Tyquan? He went, "No, man, he's faster than I am." So he hasn't even batted an eyelash. And Nelson, obviously, with just as any wide receiver, he's prideful. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy for him to admit that, but he didn't even take a second step on that one. That goes to show you the speed of this kid. So opposing defenses need to account for him. And when you're accounting for someone and you have additional guys to cover, all of a sudden it opens up some of your other players like a Hunter Henry or a Jonnu Smith. So maybe those numbers will increase, but I think their usage and their prowess and their skill set is going to remain constant. And that's not a bad thing for the New England Patriots, folks. Claire, again, the meter of wisdom and counsel broke off a long time ago. The needle does not even exist anymore, folks. Claire absolutely crushed it, as she does each and every Wednesday. Countess, what can I say? It's always, you make the week better. You balance everything out. I'm a Cobra Kai fan. I'm all about balance, and that's why we have you here on Wednesdays to bring the balance to the show. I always appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, please let all of our listeners, all of our new listeners, and we welcome all of those, who are listening for the first time or close to the first time. We appreciate you. Please stick around. We love having you here. Please let everyone know where they can find you, your great work, and what we can expect in the coming days from the great voice and the great pen of ClazzyClare Cooper.
Sure. Thank you very much, Michael. It's always lovely to be here on a Wednesday. I love the Locked On studios. It's always great fun. If you're after me, you can listen even A Clare Perspective, the podcast brought to you by Full Press Coverage. Episode 31 I recorded last week with the infamous and awesome Nick Fitzstevens. So that's still up there. So that's loads of fun. So don't miss out. That's a good giggle, if you like. patspropaganda.com, that's where my written work is. That's where you will find all my t-shirt tight endage designs. So please do go over to patspropaganda.com and get yourself a t-shirt whilst you still can, folks. But you will see that's where my written work is. Normally in season, you'll find my game recaps, but obviously just before the draft I had some draft stuff, and the draft recap you will find is still up there from my lovely colleague Tom Shawmiller. So head over to Pat's Propaganda and keep an eye on there for the written work that's coming out, and the game recaps will come back once the season is back with us. So yeah, don't forget to go over to patspropaganda.com, folks. And also, One Patriots Place, courtesy of E2G Sports, is here for you each and every week. Yesterday, we recorded our draft recap. It was the Three Amigos, which was just me, Steve, and Murph. So if you haven't already, then after you've listened to this show, make sure you check out A Clare Perspective. And once you've done that, head over to E2G Sports and get hold of the latest of One Patriots Place, and don't miss that each and every week.
I love how she's got a hierarchy there, folks. She actually did say after you listen to this. So she put Locked On Patriots in that pantheon. Thank you so much, Countess. She got a Clare Perspective in there. Well, a little homage as well. As you notice, second week in a row, I'm rocking the Scally Cap in Nick's honor. I did tell him that until you post a new show, I would continue to rock the Scally Cap in his honor. But no, all kidding aside, folks, it really is a tremendous listen. One of my favorite listens in a long time. Check that out. It is available wherever you get your podcasts. Claire and Nick always they're always a blast when they hit the microphone together, and I truly enjoy listening to each and every one of her episodes. And of course, One Patriots Place. How could I not? The patronage that you guys show me and the hospitality that you show me each and every week, I can only return the favor. That is always a great listen. Murph, Steve, and Claire put on a great show, and I love it. And of course, all of the great work done by all the great writers over at patspropaganda.com. Check that out. But, I have a certain bias to my co-host here each and every Wednesday. Claire, again, thank you so much for your wisdom, your counsel, your wit, your wisdom. We always appreciate having you here. I can't wait to talk football with you again next Wednesday. Patriots schedule will be out by then. We'll have lots to talk about. Super. It'll be a lot of fun, folks. In the meantime, I thank you, each and every one of you, for taking time out of your day to make Locked On Patriots a part of your daily Patriots coverage. You can download, subscribe to, follow Locked On Patriots on all platforms, including Spotify, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Just make sure that you stay locked into Locked On Patriots and smash that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. Until next time, folks, on behalf of the illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper, I'm Mike Debate. Stay safe, stay well, Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone.